speak little thing about the hyperlipidemia and its role in atherosclerosis. It contains triglycerides and cholesterols. It stimulates the enterocytes and it releases a cholecystokinin from the intestinal wall. It stimulates the gallbladder from the gallbladder, and also it stimulates the pancreas, and it releases pancreatic lipase enzymes, as well as from the gallbladder it releases bile salts. So these bile salts are hydrophilic, whereas the triglycerides and the cholesterols are hydrophobic. So these bile salts surrounds the these bile salts surrounds a triglyceride, and it forms a soluble in water. So soluble in water, it becomes a hydrophilic. Then these pancreatic lipase and some gastric lipase, it degrades this triglyceride and cholesterol into free fatty acids and some cholesterol esters and cholesterol. These free fatty acids then now transferred from the intestine to the blood cells. So these fatty acids, this is the enterocytes, which shows this is the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and this is the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. These free fatty acids enters the enterocytes from free fatty acids and with cholesterol esters in smooth endoplasmic reticulum. An enzyme which combines these free fatty acids and cholesterol then again forms triglycerides inside the enterocytes. Then these triglycerides, along with some proteins from rough endoplasmic reticulum, that is apoproteins, then it associates with triglycerides, it forms chylomicrons. These chylomicrons then through the lacteals, it enters into the blood vessels. And this is a picture which shows lipoprotein molecules, and this is a apoprotein molecule, and this lipid core with the cholesterol vessels and triglycerides, and along with phosphate forms phospholipids. So it depends upon the mass and density of the lipids and proteins. There are different types of lipoproteins, from very low density to high density lipoproteins. And this is the metabolism of the lipoprotein. From the intestine, the chylomicrons enters into the blood vessels. There, the chylomicron, which has apoprotein C2 and apoprotein E, which is the main thing. The C2, which stimulates the lipoprotein lipase, and E is for adherence to the LDL receptor. And this stimulates a lipoprotein lipase. Then this lipoprotein lipase degrades a triglyceride in the chylomicrons into free fatty acids and triglycerides. Then the remnant chylomicron remnant, then through the stimulation of this apoprotein E, the LDL receptors accept the chylomicrons inside the liver. Then inside the chylomicrons, these free fatty acids and triglycerides, it forms again the lipoprotein molecule along with the apoprotein apoprotein 100, apoprotein E, it forms a VLDL. Then the VLDL from the liver, it enters a bloodstream. There, the VLDL's main function is it carries a cholesterol from the storage like lipid, as well as adipocytes. These VLDL then degrade by the lipoprotein lipase into free fatty acids. These free fatty acids are used by the adipocytes and muscles for the functions. Then the remnant intermediate density lipoprotein is transferred to the liver through the through the acceptance of LDL receptors. Then there the hepatic lipase degrade the triglycerides, and through the apoprotein again from the rough endoplasmic reticulum, it forms a LDL. Then low density lipoproteins then give some of lipoproteins to the for the formation of HDL, and it again goes to the peripheral cells. The HDL which secretes from the liver, it takes up the cholesterol from all the peripheral cells, through the transport protein called ABCA1, that is called ATP binding cassette A1. Another one protein is called ATP binding cassette G1. Through this, it carries a free cholesterol. Then, with the help of L-carnitine acyltransferase, it transfers the triglyceride from the cholesterol and transfer the from the cholesterol, and it transfer to the intermediate density lipoprotein as well as the low density lipoproteins, and it exchanges the cholesterol from the VLDL with the triglyceride, and it again forms the LDL. This is the metabolism of the lipoproteins, and this is a protein which transport the cholesterol from the intracellular to the HDL molecule. So these are the familiar some lipoprotein metabolism disorders. There are 6 types, in which the type 2 and type 3 is most common. The type 1 is because of defect in the apoprotein C, which leads to increase in the chylomicron levels. In type 2A, it is due to LDL receptor synthesis as well as a processing, so it doesn't accept the LDL through the liver, so there is increase in the LDL concentration in the blood with normal LDL levels, because due to block in the LDL degradation. Whereas in type 2B, it is because of the overproduction of the nascent VLDL from the liver, so it leads to increased VLDL. Whereas in type 2A, there is VLDL level is normal. In type 2B, it is increased. It is due to overproduction of VLDL. Then type 3, it is due to mutate in the apoprotein E, so it leads to overproduction and underutilization of the intermediate density lipoproteins. So there is increase in intermediate density lipoproteins. In type 4, it is due to VLDL overproduction or decreased removal from the bloodstream as well as a triglyceride. Whereas in type 5, it is similar, but here it is due to VLDL and chylomicron overproduction and decreased clearance. So except in type 1, type 2, all the patients have increased vascular disease manifestation. So coming to proper atherosclerosis. So atherosclerosis is a term derived from the Greek term which is called athero, means the gruel, the sclerosis means gardening. The gruel means which is like cake-like thing, and the sclerosis is a hardening. So coming to atherosclerosis is a progressive inflammatory disorder of the vascular wall. So coming to pathogenesis, so there are so many hypotheses proposed. So initially in 1856, the Virchow proposed the insuration hypothesis is nothing but what we followed nowadays. It is a response to cell injury. That is, due to cell injury, the internal cell injury, the lipids get imbibition, and the macrophages synthesize the cytokines, and it causes the intimal cell proliferation. Whereas in the same year 1856, the Rokitansky, he proposed one theory called theory which denotes the artery wall get encrusted by the blood components, which forms a thrombi over the plaque, but it is not accepted. Then the third one is the monoclonal hypothesis. So inside the monocytes and other smooth cells, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme, there are present in 2 forms. There are 2 isoforms there. After so many studies which done through atherosclerotic plaque, they identified the proliferated smooth muscle cells have similar isoforms in all the types. That is, it denotes the monoclonal proliferation of the smooth muscle cells. Then coming to the recent hypothesis, that is response to cell injury. Some proposed the other theory called response to returns. First we see the response to cell injury. In 1990, the Ross and Fuster, he described the 3 types of initial steps in case of response to cell injury. First is endothelial dysfunction, which is due to some gene mutations or some signaling pathway. It leads to increased permeability. Whereas in second is endothelial cell dissuppression. It is obvious due to cell injury. It causes the damage of the endothelial cell. In third, it is due to injury to media. It causes profound thrombosis. So this is a response to cell injury, and this is a normal pathway. It takes place inside the cell wall. Once the VCUM, vascular cell adhesion molecule, which absorbs adsorbs the monocytes, then the monocyte differentiate into macrophages. Usually inside the LDL, this LDL is taken up by the macrophages as well as the VLDL, and this forms the foam cells, and it causes the efflux of cholesterol and efflux of cholesterol from the monocytes, and some of the cholesterol droplets within the monocyte are absorbed by the HDL, and the remaining monocytes go for efferocytosis or phagocytosis. And if there is any defective apoptosis or efferoptosis, it leads to atherosclerosis. And the first step in the response to cell theory is the endothelial injury, which is due to multiple factors. And the main factors they propose is chronic lipidemia as well as smoking, which leads to endothelial cell injury. It causes increased permeability and leukocyte adhesions, as I said earlier, to the VCAM molecule. Then the macrophage enters into the intimal and subintimal and medial layer. It accumulates and it activates. It synthesizes cytokine and inflammatory mediators. It causes a smooth muscle cell proliferation, and it activates the smooth muscle to migrate to the subintimal layer. Then in the subintimal layer, through the subintimal layer, and after the inhibition of the lipids into the subintimal layer, it oxidized by the reactive oxygen speakers. Then it taken up by the macrophages, forms the foam cells, and the foam cells in the subintimal layer, it forms a fatty streak. Then due to progressive proliferation and extracellular membrane deposition and extracellular lipid deposition, it forms a fibroathema. Then the second theory is the forgot to mention, in response to injury, they said there are two theories, but we mostly followed the injury to the endothelial cell of the lumen. In first, endothelial cell of injury to the endothelial cell of the lumen, which causes the migration of the macrophages and further process in the atherosclerosis. Whereas some propose that it is due to injury of the endothelial cell of the vasa vasorum, which leads to vasa vasorum is the one which supplies a blood supply to the intima, which leads to lack of blood supply to the intima. So in those places where there is lack of blood supply, it leads to endothelial cell injury, and it causes a erosion and further thrombosis. But according to this vasovasorum theory, it means the atherosclerosis is a microvascular disease, but we know the atherosclerosis is a major vascular disease. In response to retention, where the first step, it is not the endothelial cell injury, it is due to some endothelial cell dysfunction, where the lipoprotein from the bloodstream, it gets accumulated and it migrates to the subintimal layer, and it causes the oxidation of the LDL. Then this lipoprotein causes a increased intimal thickness. It leads to hypoxia. Then this hypoxia induces the neovascularization. This neovascularization causes the new endothelial cell, which is more prone for increased permeability of the lipoprotein as well as other proteins. And this is a atherosclerotic plaque microscopic picture, which shows this is a central lipid core which contains foam cells, lipid droplets, and monocytes. And this is a fibrocap which contains most of the smooth muscle cells as well as the monocytes. In case of stable plaque, this fibrous cap will be thick, and in case of unstable plaque, this fibrous cap will be very thin. And this WHO classification of the histological progression of the atherosclerosis. Initially, it will be the lesion because of macrophage infiltration, then forms a isolated foam cells, then because of subintimal layer foam cell deposition causes a fatty streak. Then that foam cells undergoes the apoptosis. It leads to spillage of lipids, which causes a accumulation of extracellular lipids in a small amount. It causes intermediate lesion. When it is lipid core becomes more becomes dense, it forms a atheroma. Then this atheroma becomes either fibrotic or become calcific. The type 5, they are classified into two types, type 5A and type 5B. In type 5 it is calcified, and type 5B it is fibrotic. Then the final is a complicated lesion. If it has become calcified, there will be no complication. If it will be in case of fibroathema, if the fibrous cap will be thin, it causes erosion, it causes surface defect, and it leads to hematoma and hemorrhage and thrombosis. So from the atheroma, these lesions develops clinically it becomes evident. In the initial lesions become usually the clinically it will be silent. Coming to laboratory methods, so whom are all should be screened according to National Cholesterol Education Program, which is formulated in 1988. The ATP3, that is Adult Treatment Panel 3. Adults they recommend the adults who are more than 20 years, they should be screened every 5 years with the fasting lipid profile. It contains total cholesterol, triglyceride, low density lipoprotein, high density lipoprotein cholesterol, and low density lipoprotein cholesterol. Since the total cholesterol contains all the type of cholesterol like high density, low density, very low density, it is not a good predictor. Whereas other observation as well as intervention studies observe that LDL-C is the most predictive marker for the risk of the atherosclerosis, and HDL-C also having the equal importance. In some conditions like diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and who are the patients having familial hypercholesterolemia, in those patients, increase in triglyceride level also indicates a risk of the atherosclerosis. In some patients, like diabetes, type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome, the term called atherogenic dyslipidemia was there. In those patients who are having the cardiovascular disease, in those patients, LDL-C is normal, but still the patients having cardiovascular manifestation. In those patients, they observe one entity called low density particle, which is correlate with the risk of the atherosclerosis. Low density LDL particle is, if it is small and dense particle and it is higher number, it denotes a higher risk of atherosclerosis. Before indicate the risk of atherosclerosis, some studies says that it is not the concentration of the cholesterol, it is the LDL particle which migrates through the blood vessel. It increases atherosclerosis. In some studies, it says that it is not the particle, and it is if the LDL particle has higher concentration, it deposits higher cholesterol in the atheromatous plaque. So LDL-P particle is not important, but it is still in study. The LDL-P particle is biochemically diagnosed by nuclear magnetic resonance. So before the LDL particle, they said that ApoB100, which is more accurate relative to LDL cholesterol, because ApoB100 protein is present in the low density lipoproteins, and it doesn't denote the cholesterol level. But the thing here is the ApoB100 not only present in LDL but also in the VLDL, so it doesn't denote the accurate value of LDL. So the LDL-P is a most accurate nowadays. In some studies they are saying that. Then in some observational studies they say that non-HDL cholesterol values have also have better predictors of the atherosclerotic risk. And the last one is a lipoprotein A. It is a variant of LDL proteins. Variant of LDL protein level also important in case of atherosclerosis. In European guidelines, they recommend LPA level in the patients who are having high risk of family history of increased lipoprotein A, having a recurrent atherosclerosis, familial hypercholesterolemia, and who are having the recurrent cardiovascular events, and who doesn't meet the accepted goals even after starting the statin therapy. So those are all the patients who are recommended for lipoprotein A value in according to European guidelines. So this is the importance of the non-high density lipoprotein cholesterol. This is a known predictor of CHD in epidemiology. It equivalents to apoprotein B100 as well as the total cholesterol and HDL, and it represents the sum of all cholesterol except HDL, and it is a lipid equivalent of the hemoglobin A1c. Then the last one is what we see in biochemical analysis is a direct analysis of the LDL, VLDL as well as in one study they say that the Friedewald equation is that it is equivalent to the direct analysis of the LDL. It is nothing but the LDL can be derived from total cholesterol minus high density lipoprotein minus triglyceride divided by 5, and the VLDL is observed getting by dividing the triglyceride divided by 5. So these are the some biochemical markers of pathogenesis of atherosclerosis, where in the initial vascular information, high sensitivity CRP, the weak molecule interleukin IL-6 are elevated. In case of rupture or plaque vulnerability, myeloperoxidase, MMP protein, PAPI are increased. In case of ischemia, or if the muscle is going for stress response, and the GDF15 and the copeptin are increased. In case of necrosis, as we know in myocardial infarction, the high sensitive troponin I, troponin T are elevated. In case of infarction, the brain natriuretic peptide get elevated. So coming to guidelines for lipid disorder management. So in 1988, according to adult treatment panel, they proposed some findings, and based on that, they formed the National Cholesterol Education Program in 1982. An adult treatment panel, they suggest the education and lifestyle modification intervention in the patients who are having the LDL more than 190 or LDL cholesterol more than 160 with 2 or more risk factors. In this treatment panel, they proposed the risk factors for coronary heart disease in addition to LDL. One is the cigarette smoking, other one is hypertension, then low HDL less than 40, and the family members who are having CSD less than 55 years in case of male, less than 65 years in case of female, and the patients who are having age more than 45 years and women more than 55 years. In 1993, the second panel was formed. It is mostly based on the multiple secondary prevention trials, whereas the adult panel one is primary prevention management. And in the secondary prevention trial, and they observed some of the interesting findings, like the coronary artery disease is manifested most of the patients in coronary artery stenosis less than 70%. Thereby, they term the lesions called vulnerable plaque, which is more prone for thrombosis than the stable plaque. Then they fix the aggressive target for lipid lowering agents like LDL-C. The target should be less than 100 milligram per deciliter, and they insist the secondary prevention of the congestive heart disease. And in 2002, the third panel was formed. This panel is based on 4 large trials, and comparing to other two panels, this is a evidence-based trial, and it requires the aggressive approach to assess the risk and management of the lipid levels, and it also demonstrates the risk equivalence in congestive heart disease. And these are the risk equivalents to the CHD. One is the other clinical forms of atherosclerotic disease like peripheral artery disease, aortic aneurysm, then symptomatic carotid disease, diabetes, and patients who are having multiple risk factors that indicates a 10-year risk of coronary heart disease more than 20%. And this panel stratify the risk groups into higher, middle, medium, and lower based on the Framingham risk assessment algorithm. There are 3 risk groups for the risk assessment for the congestive heart disease as well as MI and its related events. But here they use a Framingham risk assessment algorithm. The problem with the Framingham risk assessment algorithm is it doesn't include the family history, and it can over or underestimate the risk in non-US populations. And this is a risk category. It's a high risk. Is a patient who are having clinical CST, or the CST risk is equivalent, as I mentioned here, with the 10-year risk for a CST more than 20%. And the risk calculator for ASVD is available in Android as well as in net. And for high risk patients, the target level for LDL cholesterol is less than 100 and non-HDL is less than 130. And the medium risk, it is 130 and the non-HDL is 160. And the low risk factor, the LDL cholesterol target level is less than 160 and non-HDL is less than 190. And 2005 American Heart Association direct the direct management of PAD related to hyperlipidemia, and they set the goal of LDL less than 100 milligram per deciliter. It is a class 1 recommendation, and if the patient is having high risk, the LDL should be target should be less than 70. In 2030, American Heart Association they target the 4 statin benefit groups. One is the clinical atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Second, patients who are having more than 190. Third, the diabetic and non-diabetic patients with age less than, which age 40 to 75, and the patients who are having less than 190 with a risk more than 20%. And they target these patients for aggressive statin therapy. So this is how the adult treatment panel get evaluated. First, they started initially the primary prevention as the daily like diet and low dose non-statin monotherapy. Then in second to panel, they advise a low to moderate dose statin therapy. In third, they formulate the high dose statin therapy and combination therapy for the 4 statin benefit groups. And this picture which shows the cutoff points for therapeutic lifestyle changes as well as to consider the drug therapy. In a high risk group, if it is as we already know, the control should be less than 100. If it is more than 100, you start therapeutic lifestyle changes. In medium risk, if the level is more than the control group, more than the cutoff value, we should start the therapeutic lifestyle changes. In case if it is more than 130, we should start drug therapy in case of high risk. In case of medium risk, if the 10-year risk is less than, if the 10-year risk is more than 130, we should start drug therapy. More than the 10-year risk is more than 20%, and the patients who are having more than 130, we should start drug therapy. If the 10-year risk is less than 10%, but the patients having more than 160, also we should start on drug therapy. In medium risk factors, after initiating the therapeutic lifestyle changes, even if it is more than 160, we should start initially with therapeutic lifestyle changes. After 3 months, we should assess if still it is more than 160, we should consider the drug therapy. Or if the patient is having more than 190 with the single risk factor, we should start on the drug therapy. So, as a nutshell, if the patient having a high risk, if it is more than 130, if the patient having low risk, if it is more than medium risk, if it is more than 130, if the 10-year risk is more than 20, or if the more than 160, if the 10-year risk is less than 10%. And in single risk factor, if it is more than 180, we should start directly the statin therapy. So this is the therapeutic lifestyle changes for the patients who are having the risk factors. The major factors is we have to reduce the cholesterol raising nutrients. Like saturated fat should be less than 7% of the total calories. Dietary cholesterol should be less than 200 milligram per day, and the plant sterol should be 2 gram per day, and the soluble fiber should be less than 10 to less than 25 gram per day. And we should maintain the weight according to, we should maintain the weight, and we should adjust the physical activity according to that. And we have to increase the physical activity so that the AHA recommendation is daily we should spend 200 kilocalorie per day. And this is a model of therapeutic lifestyle change, how we have to follow. Once we emphasize the reduction in the diet, low fat diet, and we advise the strenuous activity, after 6 weeks we should evaluate. If still LDL goal is not achieved, we have to intensify the LDL lowering treatment. So we have to reinforce the reduction in the saturated fat, cholesterol, and we have to increase the fiber intake. Again, we have to after 6 we have to evaluate. If still LDL goal not achieved, consider adding the drug to the treatment. After 12 weeks only we have to consider adding the drug in case of low risk patients. So we have to initiate the treatment like moderate to high dose statins, depends upon the LDL level. Then after 4 to 6 months, then we have to again the monitor. Still it's not LDL goal is not achieved, we have to think for metabolic syndrome or any other abnormalities. So coming to pharmacological therapy, the most commonly used is a statin therapy. In that statin therapy, what we have is three things: the high intensity, moderate intensity, low intensity. In high intensity, the drug which reduces LDL by 50%, moderate decrease 30 to 49%. In low intensity, it decreased by 30%. In high intensity, the dose is atravas about 40 to 80 mg, and the rosuvastatin 20 to 40 mg. So these are the major atherosclerotic cardiovascular events, and these are the high risk condition. The major atherosclerotic cardiovascular events are recent acute coronary syndrome within 1 year, history of MI, history of ischemic, recent stroke, and any symptomatic peripheral artery disease. So as I said earlier, the ATP panel 3, which stress on high intensity therapy for 4 statin benefits group. In first, we have the clinical atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. That is, so this is a first statin benefit group. According to this, if these patients having these high risk condition, they should start on high intensity group. If doesn't have high risk, and they have to categorize according to the age. In this high intensity group, if on maximum intensity even or start on a high intensity group, still the LDL cholesterol is more than 70, we consider the adding the ezetimibe. So then second thing, still if it is more than 70 or 100, and there is no reduction in the LDL less than 50%, we should consider adding the newer agent, that is PCSK9 inhibitors. PCSK9 inhibitors in case of very high risk atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. In case if the patient is not having high risk, we should categorize patient according to the age. If the patient is having more than 75, we can either start on high intensity statin, or we can directly start on moderate intensity or high intensity, depends upon the high risk events. If it is less than 75%, less than 75 years of age, the we start on high intensity statin. If the high intensity statin is not tolerated, we can switch over to the moderate intensity statin. Even after the starting the maximal intensity, as I said earlier here, we can add upon ezetimibe. So these are the risk enhancers in case of diabetes, which are not independent of other risk factors according to diabetes. One is the long duration, more than 10 years in case of type 2 diabetes, and more than 20 years in case of type 1 diabetes. Then albuminuria more than 30 microgram, then GFR less than 60 ml per minute, then retinopathy, neuropathy, and ABA less than 0.9. So less than 0.9. So as I said, the second group is The second statin benefit group is LDL-C, which is more than 90. We can directly start on maximal tolerated dose of statin, and if it is still more than 100, we can add the ezetimibe, other hypolipidemic drugs like ezetimibe. Still, if it is more than 100, as I said earlier, we can add the newer agent. And this is a third group, is a diabetic with age less than age 40 to 75 and LDL less than 190, and we have to assess the risk using the atherosclerotic cardiovascular. Hello. Risk depends upon that. If it is less than 5% risk, we consider lifestyle and risk discussion only. In case if it is 5 to 7%, 7.5% risk, we have to start on statin. Statin depends upon the risk enhancer. These are the risk enhancer in case of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. If the patient is having these risk factors, we should start on statins. If the patient is having risk of about more than 7.5 to less than 20%, and we have to start on moderate intensity statin if the patient having risk enhancers, or if the still if even after evaluate the risk enhancer it is uncertain, we can calculate the coronary artery calcium score. If the patient is having more than 20% risk, we can directly start on high intensity therapy. So the patients who are having diabetes, age 40 to 75 years, with the LDL less than 190, if the patient is having more than 20% risk, directly start on high intensity. If it is more than 7.5%, if more than 7.5%, and if the patient having risk enhances, start on moderate intensity or high intensity. If it is less than 7.5%, we can advise lifestyle, then we can go for statins. And this is the and this picture which denotes the non-diabetic patients less than 40 years, we have to consider statin therapy if they have family history, premature atherosclerotic disease, or if the LDL cholesterol is more than 160. And if the patients who are having age less than 20, we have to start statins only if they have familial hypercholesterolemia. And coming to the hypolipidemic drugs, the first drug which was used in the trial for hyperlipidemia and atherosclerosis is the niacin. And the first drug which is used for lowering the triglyceride and LDL cholesterol is the bile acid sequestration. So the most commonly used is a statin, which is the HMG co-reductase inhibitors. It's a most common rate limiting step in case of cholesterol synthesis, and it reduces the cholesterol synthesis. It also has increase the LDL receptor, thereby it decreases LDL mobilization to the liver, thereby decrease the LDL also. So and it also has increased plaque stability action. So non-lipid effects of the statins are anti-inflammatory, which is useful in stroke as well as osteoporosis. Whereas these statins are metabolized by the microsomal enzymes like CYP3A4. So these drugs, when you combine with other drugs which are metabolized by the same enzyme like erythromycin, antifungal, some HIV antiretrovirus, it causes drug interactions. So the main adverse reactions in statins are myalgia, myositis, rhabdomyolysis, diabetes, like that. But these are very rare. And the statin should not be combined with fibrates, because the fibrates inhibits the statin metabolism, as well as the fibrates also cause rhabdomyolysis, which aggravates the rhabdomyolysis when given with the statins. So the dose of statins will be, we can start with low dose like 10 to 20 mg to the maximum dose like 80 mg for atorvastatin. Then the second group is niacin, which is vitamin B3, and it inhibits the free fatty acid immobilization. It inhibits the lipolysis in adipose tissues, and it inhibits the mobilization of the lipids into liver, thereby it reduces the free fatty acids, and it inhibits the VLDL synthesis and secretion. And this is a drug which significantly increases the HDL. when comparing to the other drug. So this is a drug which acts on all the lipids and lipoproteins. So the non-lipid effects of the niacin are, these are precursors of the NAD, which is useful in oxidative phosphorylation, and it has anti-inflammatory effect also. It inhibits the TNF alpha and NFK beta also. So this is a drug which has more side effects comparing to other drugs. Like it has prostaglandin. It induces the prostaglandin in the skin, which causes a flushing, vasodilatation, and pruritus. So these patients should be treated with aspirin to avoid these adverse reactions, and to avoid these adverse reactions. Aspirin should be taken 30 minutes before niacin. And it for the patients who are having a niacin, we should monitor the liver function test, uric acid and glucose, since it causes hepatotoxicity, causes hyperuricemia, and it causes impaired insulin sensitivity also. So the third drug sensitivity also, the dosage of the nicotinic acid, we can start with low dose like 500 mg HS, and we can increase up to 1 gram HS after observation of the 4 weeks, and we can increase maximum up to 2 gram per day. Then the third is the fibrates, so gemfibrosal, fenofibrate, and clofibrate. It is a microscopic enzyme inhibitor. It activates the pepper of alpha. It is agonist of pepper of alpha. Thereby, it removes the triglycerides from the VLDL, and it increases apoprotein A1, A2, and it increases the HDL. So these agents are used mainly in case of hypertriglyceridemia, hypercholesterolemia, and those patients who are having HDL deficiency. The adverse reaction in fibrates are hypersensitivity reaction, rhabdomyolysis, and blood cell deficiency. So these fibrates should not be mixed with statins to avoid rhabdomyolysis. And the fourth one is a bile acid sequestrants. They are cholestyramine, cholestyramine, and cholestyramine. Cholestyramine is a newer drug newer bile acid sequestrants. And these have all the drugs have the older drugs have adverse reactions like constipation, fecal infection, which is not present in case of cholestyramine. So these bile acid sequestrants, it exchanges a chloride for bile acid, it excreted in feces, and it increases bile acid synthesis, and it decreases the serum LDL. So it indicates in the younger patients and who are not tolerate with other treatment. It can be combined with other treatment modalities, and can be it should be taken as taken before meals or bedtime. Most of them are powder form. And the newer drugs like ezetimibe and the cholesterol ester transfer protein inhibitors are there. In cholesterol absorption inhibitor, these are cholesterol reducing agents, where the ezetimibe blocks the dietary absorption of the cholesterol. It has no effect on liver, and it can combine with statin. It has same effect as highest statin, and it is less toxicity. So the adverse reactions are, it may predispose to gallstones, then myalgia, predispose to gallstones and myalgia. So, and based on 2013 Cochrane meta-analysis, they proposed a data. In the data for the statins, these are the total number of studies they studied. In that, they demonstrated except diabetes mellitus, all other having the relative risk less than 1, which denotes these adverse events like myalgia or rhabdomyolysis are very less with statin treated patients. And this diabetic patients and the patients who are having statins having small but significant increase in the diabetes, and this is based on the Jupiter study. So the newer agents are ezetimibe, already I explained, and the cholesterol ester transfer protein agents like torcetrapib, anacetrapib, and these are newer agents, and it inhibits the cholesterol ester transfer protein. As I said earlier, cholesterol ester transfer protein. It transfers cholesterol esters. It transfers the triglycerides from the HDL to the VLDL and LDL. So there are two types of inhibitors. One is homotypic, then is heterotypic. Homotypic is it transfers proteins within HDL, and heterotypic transfers a protein from HDL to VLDL or IDL. So by inhibiting it decreases the LDL as well as the triglycerides. So this torcetrapib, anacetrapib is both homo and heterotypic, whereas dalcetrapib is a heterotypic inhibitors. And this PSK9 inhibitors, which is a newer agent, and it inhibit normally the PSK9 protein is the protein convertase subtilis kexin, which inhibit the LDL receptor, so thereby it decrease the hepatic LDL receptor for recycling, thereby it increase the LDL level. By inhibiting this, the hepatic LDL receptor is activated, recycled, and LDL get absorbed and it decreases the LDL level. And these are the microsomal enzyme inhibitors like lomitapide, mipomersin, which is recently approved for familial hypercholesterolemia. So these are the consolidation of the statins and other hyperlipidemic drugs, which reduce the HDL and LDL concentration. Statins reduce the HDL concentration by 25%, and LDL concentration by 60%. And niacin, as I said earlier, is a drug among all the drugs which increase the HDL maximum among all the drugs. So they estimate decrease the LDL by 15 to 20%. So first, when we start on statin, it starts decrease LDL concentration by 80%. If we need further reduction, the doubling the dose, it reduces a further 6% of the LDL concentration. By adding the sequestrants and the estimate, it reduces the LDL concentration by 16% and 20%. So there comes a combination therapy, the statin combined with cholesterol blocking agents like ezetimibe and bile acid sequestrants along with niacin. It can be along with niacin, it can be given to patients who are having higher low density lipoproteins like familial hypercholesterolemia, or the statin can be combined with fenofibrate, not with the gemfibrozil, fenofibrate and omega-3 fatty acids, and niacin. It can be given for combined hyperlipidemia, that is type 3, that is type 2 lipoprotein disorder. So these are the landmark trials in case of hyperlipidemia in cholesterol. There is a first trial which started in 1973. That is a post trial. There is a program on surgical control of the hyperlipidemia and hyperlipidemia. At the end of follow-up of this trial, there is no different. There are two arms. One is the control arm, where they counsel and they give medical therapy, not relate medical therapy except cholesterol lowering agent. In treatment arm, they do the partial EL bypass along with cholesterol lowering agents. At the end of this trial, there was no difference in the primary outcome, that is the death related to cardiovascular events. But they somehow they followed the patients even after the end of the trial for 5 years follow-up. In the 5 years follow-up, they have identified that there is decrease in abnormal decrease in the risk of 44% in patients who are having abnormal API, and 30% reduction in peripheral artery disease manifestation. So peripheral disease manifestation. And the second important thing is a class trial. Is a cholesterol lowering atherosclerosis study, started in 1980, ended in 1994. It is an anatomical trial based on anatomical assessment, and they included the patient who are having hyperlipidemia with non-smoking and males for including 40 to 59 years, and they categorize into randomized to two groups. In one group, they advise placebo and diet. In another one group, they advise cholesterol lowering agents. At the end of 2 years, they taken CT angio for all the patients, and they assess the progression of the atherosclerosis in the coronary artery disease, in the coronary arteries. And this is a trial for diet as well as exercise. And this is EDIS trial, is Italian diabetes and exercise study. Here the 606 patients included. They categorized into two patients, two groups. In one group they advise counseling, in another group they advise the exercise. The exercise group have improvement in lipid profile, as well as they have decreased systolic pressure and the waist circumference also. And the Predimed, it based on the trial for diet. It includes a 772 high risk patient. It is a primary prevention trial. It is a multi-center trial. Here they advise one group, they advise Mediterranean diet, which includes fruits, nuts, vegetables, olive oils. In another one group, they advise a low fat. And comparing to the low fat diet groups, Mediterranean groups have decreased major cardiac events. According to American Heart Association, they denotes the patient should have more than 150 minutes exercise of moderate activity per week. If the activity is rigorous, and we have to do more than 75 minutes exercise per week. And these are the trial for statins. First one is a SIRS trial, which it denotes if we are doing high dose of simvastatin, it increases the risk of myopathy. Then the FOREST trial is a Scandinavian simvastatin survival study. It is a first trial in CST patients for lipid lowering agents. It decreases mortality by 30% and non-coronary events by risk by 42%. And it also denotes the outcome of the events is directly proportional to the LDL as well as the total cholesterol levels. And they also observe that there is 38% reduction in the claudication symptoms. It may be old or new. And HFACE is a landmark trial in case of peripheral artery disease. They randomized 20,536 patients, high-risk patients who are having the hyperlipidemia into two groups. In one group, they subjected to simvastatin 40 milligram, and another group they subject to antioxidants or placebo. At the end of 5 years follow-up, they observed that there is a risk in reduction of the major vascular event risk by 19.8% comparing with the placebo group, which is significant. And also observed that 20% decrease in the non-coronary revascularization, which includes carotid artery endarterectomy. And in these groups, it includes 6,000 peripheral artery disease and 5,900 diabetic patients. In subset analysis also, these groups shows a significant improvement. And the third one is a PROSPER trial. Is a prospective study of pravastatin elderly. It includes elderly patient of 70 to 82 years of high risk patients who are having any vascular disease, include 5,800 patients. At the end of 5-year follow-up, they observed that in these patients, it reduced the LDL level by 34%, cardiac event by 19%, and cardiac related mortality by 24%, which is significant. And this trial, which denotes that we can safely extend to statins to elderly patient. And this TNT trial is a treating to new target study trial. And these trials study the 10,000 CST patients who are having LDL less than 30 milligram Hg. They randomized to two groups. One is subjected to high dose atorvastatin, then low dose atorvastatin. In high dose atorvastatin, those groups have increased risk reduction by 22% comparing to the low dose atorvastatin by only the 10% in case of 10 mg. Thereby, it increases the high intensity statins, as I explained earlier. And these are some landmark trial in case of statin groups. It denotes how it decrease the cardiovascular related events and the decrease total cholesterol as well as the total cholesterol as well as the low density lipoproteins. And these are trials for ezetimibe, which is a cholesterol lowering drug. The enhanced trial, which is nothing but the ezetimibe and simvastatin in hypercholesterolemia enhancement enhances the atherosclerosis progression. It includes 725 patients. They are subjected into two groups. One is ezetimibe and simvastatin alone. At the end of this trial, they found out that there is no difference in combination therapy versus simvastatin monotherapy in the outcome. Their primary outcome is carotid intimal medial thickness. And the short trial, it is a trial of study for heart and renal protection. It includes CKD patients, about 9,270 patients, and the treated patients are 526, placebo patients are 699. They subjected to combination of simvastatin and ezetimibe versus placebo, and they found that there is no difference in this primary outcome. In these trials, they found out that simvastatin monotherapy is better than simvastatin ezetimibe therapy in case of primary prevention. And this is a trial for niacin, where the Arbiter 2 trial and the Arbiter 6, which is HALS 2 trial, the niacin combines with statin. In this trial, the niacin combines with ezetimibe. There is significant improvement in the progression of the atherosclerosis on combining the niacin. And the primary outcome is carotid intimal medial thickness. And this is a picture which shows the effect of the trials based on the statin. They compare the statin with placebo. This is LDL cholesterol, except that mega trial. All of the trials have significant improvement using the statins. Whereas using the statins, and this is a trial for fish oil, that is omega-3 fatty acids. This is a Zapan eicosapantonic acid lipid intervention study. They observed 18,680 patients, and they observed the follow-up for 4.6 years. At the end of the primary outcome is sudden death, MI due to any causes, then revascularization. They observed that 19% decrease on adding the statins with omega-3 fatty acids, but on subset analysis, this omega-3 fatty acid doesn't prove any improvement in decrease reduction in case of primary prevention. And it can be added to statin, but as a primary prevention, we cannot directly use the omega-3 fatty acids. And this trial for new drug, that is PCSK9 inhibitors. In Mendel trial, they used PCSK monotherapy and decreased the LDL cholesterol by 48 to 51%. In GAS trial, is for both PCSK9 inhibitors as well as ezetimibe, and it is a goal achievement after utilizing the PCSK9 inhibitor in statin intolerant subjects. So they used these newer drugs in statin intolerant patients, and they observed that LDL cholesterol reduction, concentration reduction about 41 to 51%, and the ezetimibe reduced the LDL cholesterol reduction about 60%. And this is a study for fibrates, which indicates there is it increases HDL cholesterol level comparing to placebo in these two trials. And there is a data from coronary heart disease policy model predict that a population having decrease in sodium intake about 1.2 gram per day would decrease the annual number of CSD events by 60,000 to 12,000 and overall mortality by 44,000 to 90,000 per year. And in 2013, they conduct the large meta-analysis, and it includes 18 random RCT trials. It includes 56,934 patients. It is a primary prevention trial. In that, they observed that there is a 14% mortality reduction when using statin, and 25% reduction in the fatal and non-fatal cardiac disease, and there is decrease in the revascularization rate also. And these Cochrane analysis also indicate the safety of statin. As I already said, based on number of studies, they say that adverse reaction, there is no difference in the adverse reaction on using the statins, and it is very, very rare. And in case, and there is a small significant increase in the diabetes only while using the statins. Thank you, sir.